Hi everyone, Armoured Pants here, and I have another review for you. This is a German tank, the Tier 8 Premium Heavy VK16801, which is a new tank just in the stores right now. We're going to look at the tech spec, and as always we will use blitzhanger.com for that, which is a great asset for all blitzers. If you're not using it, please do so. Now, key points about this tank. It's 17,000 gold fully equipped in the store right now, and 15,000 unequipped. That's about €50, something like that, and almost 60 USD, I think, thereabouts, right? That is a lot of money. It is a lot of money for basically what is essentially a piece of code on a server which you download. I mean, and I think it's totally unreasonable. Look, I know that WarGaming is a business. I know they have to make money, but I think charging €50, almost $60 for a pixelated tank is really unfair. Puts a lot of pressure on their customers, which is basically us, the users and players. Look, I'm going to review it because it's in the store and people want to, and also so you can make up your own mind. But there's also some good news in that there'll be alternative from the tech tree, which I'll suggest to you should you wish to play this kind of tank style. Now, this is a big monster heavy. It is a what you would call a real heavy, a traditional heavy. If you remember the heavy tank guide that we have on channel, when we spoke about the role of a heavy tank, well, this tank is typical for that, in that you go to key positions on the map, you seize those positions for your team, and then you try to anchor the enemy there while your meds and light tanks come around flank or whatever. And this tank is excellent for that because it has great armor, which you're going to look at in a second. It has a 128mm gun. But it's the Quack 50, so it's short and stubby, so it has low muzzle velocity. Muzzle velocity is only 810 meters per second with normal AP rounds. So what we're going to do is, as you can see, though, it is higher on the APCR rounds, but you lose more penetration over distance. It has decent on the HE, which you saw there, so make sure you load up HE because it is a big gun. What we're going to do is we're going to use supercharge to get that muzzle velocity up to over 1300 meters per second, and we're going to use refined gun as well to reduce the loss of penetration over distance. Why? Well, as we know, muzzle velocity is in the formula for armor penetration, and it's squared in that formula, so therefore increasing muzzle velocity gives you an exponentially better chance of penning the enemy, and that affects your actual penetration versus an actual DPM versus theoretical DPM, which is essentially just the average damage per shell multiplied by shells per minute. But of course, if they don't go through, that formula goes out the window. So therefore maximizing penetration increases your chance of damage and chances of winning the game. So this tank, as you can see, has relatively decent gun handling. It's not bad, but it is very, very slow. Only 20 kilometers in the forward line and 15 back, which is actually not bad at all. But you know, it's very slow. Turret traverse is really slow, and it is a big target as well. They call it a Behemoth, and it is a Behemoth. It's a very big target. That said, look at this armor profile, and that's what this tank is really all about. It is just about the armor. It's about moving that armor very slowly, by the way, into a key position where you can take shots from the enemy, hopefully bounce them, and allow your team to do well. Let's add in the external modules here, and we can see, if you look at those relative armor numbers in the top left hand corner, you can see that this tank will side scrape all day long. And you see here, even when I pulled out at an acute angle, so not really the optimal angle for side scraping, it still had almost 500 meters of relative armor, so you're going to bounce shots even if you don't side scrape well. Now here we are. Let's have a look at this game, and we're going to see this side scraping in action. So here I am up against another Tier 8 heavy, the Tiger 2. Tiger 2 is side scraping. He's adopted a good position there, and he is trying to side scrape. Unfortunately, he is not doing it quite right, in that he is giving me his turret front on, so you can see that I can pen his turret each time, and he is bouncing his shots off me. So I've just taken 200 tracks there, and I've reduced down his hit points. Now I'm side scraping well in this tank, and this tank, you saw there from those numbers, this tank will side scrape in a position like this all day long, and you will get great satisfaction and great results. As you saw there, I have him down to one shot, and my ally, the Tiger 1, comes in and takes him out. So that's a good example of how to side scrape in this tank and how effective it is at side scraping. And is really a very effective side scraper. If you are buying this tank and you're not normally playing heavies and you've forgotten how to side scrape or not really sure, there is a side scraping guide on the KV1 guide that's on this channel, and also in the heavy tank guide. So if you want to have a look at both of those, you get a refresher course. Now this tank can reverse side scrape as well. Look at those relative arm numbers. Again, really good. Your butt's a bit open, but if you hide your butt just as you should hide the front lower plate on the when you're side scraping front on, you'll be able to bounce shots, reverse side scraping as well. You can see here, looking at those relative armor numbers, it's really difficult to pen. And you're going to see, and even if you're not side scraping, if you just move around from side to side in this tank, it's difficult because it is really slow. Then you're going to get bounces. Now, if you look at it like this, it's basically a motion, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, if you just turn the turret the other way, so it's not really a lot of thought within the design of this. It's sort of something in between the Motion and the VK100-01P, which are both Tech 3 tanks. Now, if we look here front on, you can see this tank is a red menace. Almost impossible to pen front on, except for that lower plate, that lower rectangle. And even when you're up tiered, it's still very difficult to pen front on. And if you can protect that lower plate, as I was doing when I was side scraping there, you will be able to just bounce shots all day long and then do damage and do a great job for your team playing that key anchor heavy tank role. In terms of tactics here, it's interesting, right? It says nothing is recommended, but this tank, I believe, is all about its armor. So this is just my opinion, by the way, so you can feel free to disagree, but my opinion about this tank is that it's all about its armor. So you should push that armor into the face of the enemy. Your job is to take shots, take the heat for your team, bounce shots, absorb shots, and allow your team to do more damage. And you do as much damage as you can. And we're going to see a game where I play in Winter Malakova where I actually adopt that strategy. Now, my survival rate in this tank is not great because I actually push into the enemy a lot. I'm very aggressive in it. As aggressive as you can be in something that only does 20 kilometers an hour forward speed. But I push on into the enemy, and you're going to see that in that game. Now, I did say that this tank is something in between the VK100-01P and the Motion. And actually, it has almost the same characteristics as the VK100-01P. So if you want to save yourself 50 euros or almost 60 bucks, just go up to Tech Line and get yourself a VK100-01P. Because if you want to experience the gameplay of the 168-01P, the VK100-01P is going to give you almost exactly the same gameplay. Same speed, forward reverse, almost the same armor profile. Have a look at it here. It has the same gun, the same reload, which is just over 14 seconds, the same damage per minute, the same pen. So this is effectively just a rehash of this tank. So again, it's lazy for WarGaming, and again makes them, the justification of them charging so much money for this tank, really hard. It's really hard to justify. I mean, it's just no way they should be charging this money for, which is a rehash of a Tech 3 tank. Now, if you are somebody who likes to collect tanks on your account and you've got the money, of course, go ahead and buy it. But you know, I have nothing to do with WarGaming. I'm no way associated with them. I just do this because I love the game and I want to give something back to the gaming community. And I always give my honest opinion. You, of course, can feel free to disagree with it. And I understand that WarGaming is a business, but I just think this is way too much money for a tank. Particularly, you know, given the other things that you can do with that tank. You know, we're coming into the period of time where kids are starting to go back to school in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And you know, you can buy a lot of school books for 50 or 60 bucks. You know, a lot of provisions, new shoes, maybe a school uniform in the UK or Ireland. So, you know, it's a lot of money to ask from people. You know, if you're working, it's a lot of money. You know, it's a few lunches during the week or whatever. It could be your transport fees to work. And if you're not working, it's a hell of a lot of money, almost impossible. And if you're a kid or your kids play the game, it's putting a lot of pressure on the kids to sort of spend money on things they don't really need. I just think it's very unfair of WarGaming. Of course, I understand they have to make money. but I really do think there should be a limit to that. I mean, why is it not just $20? Why do they need to charge almost $60? You know, I don't get it. I mean, I think it's very unreasonable amount of money for what is essentially just some code. You know, as I've said in other videos, I understand they have to make money, and the day they stop making money is the day that Blitz stops existing, right? Of course, we understand that they're a business, but there's ways of making money, and then there's ways of exploiting your loyal customer base, which is us, the players, and I think this is somewhat bordering on the exploitation. Anyway, enough of the social commentary, because you may not be interested in it and actually may not care what my opinion is. But you know, as I said, I'm not associated with WarGaming, so I do like to share my honest opinion on things. Now, this is what I said about this tank and how I believe you should play it, right? So I have gone and captured B. I'm really aggressive in this tank. I've pushed on. I'm now going to face up to 3 of their frontline tanks, 2 heavies, and the tank destroyer. So I take out one of their main battle tanks, the Luva, which is actually a great tank. And here I am now facing up to the other 2. I'm using the armor. I'm not so worried about the Tiger. I'm just going to kind of ignore him for the moment. I get a shot on him there though, because I'm getting bounces from him, so I'm trying to push my armor front onto the ISU. I'm trying to make it difficult for him to get shots. But he's a good player. He's taking his time with his shots, and he's actually doing a lot of damage to me. But you can see I'm using this tank aggressively. There's no point sitting back in this tank, because this tank is all about armor. The other thing about this tank is that, and one of its major limitations is, it is so slow that if you sit back and don't inflict damage on the enemy later on, and you get caught in the end 1 or 2 against 4 or 5 tanks, because you haven't pushed on, you're going to lose in this tank, because if you've got meds or lights against you, you're just going to get smashed. This thing is not able to fight against meds and lights if it gets isolated. You know, you saw there in that game, I sacrificed myself, but I told you, as I said, I was quite happy to do that, because I believe I needed to push on. But you see, I did a great job for my team. We won the game. The damage caused, purple ribbon, damage blocked, gold ribbon, and that's what you should do with this tank. You know, I just pushed on, because I don't believe there's any point sitting back in this tank. That's not what this is about. You got that armor. It's the main thing it has going for it, is that armor. So push on into the enemy and make sure that you utilize that and do a good job for your team. So that is my recommendation on how to play this tank, and it is very much a team tank. You very much play that heavy tank role, and you should play that role effectively by pushing on in this tank. There's no point, as I said, sitting back. This tank is all about being effective in the early part of the battle when you have allies. Push on, take shots for your allies, take some damage, bounce some shots, stop the enemy hurting your teammates, and do as much damage as you can, and seize those strategic positions on the map. Again, this is a supremacy, and I'm pushing on. I'm going to be aggressive again. I'm going to C. I'm going to try to capture C. By the way, I always leave these little wooden sheds in place when I'm capturing C. Why? Because you can't have HE or heat shells fired at you, because they won't go through, or rather they will just explode and impact on the shed. But sometimes other people come along and come in beside you and break them up. But if you have the possibility, leave those sheds in place, because if there's a TD or something with a big gun on the other side, it also makes you harder to spot, by the way, because you've got some soft cover, but it means that they can't fire, big guns can't fire heat or HE at you. So just something that I always do. Now, I pushed on again. I was trying to help my mates on the right hand side. There's absolutely no point of me going across the valley in this team, because it'll take me about 20 minutes to get up to the other side of the valley. If you're wondering why I picked APCR here, I actually thought I was selecting HE, because I was actually looking at the mini map to see what was behind me up my butt on the other side of the valley, and I made a mess out of the shell selection. I'm back to normal AP now, because I knew he's within the minimum alpha roll on the normal HE shell. Again, I make another mistake here, by the way, guys and girls. I actually thought that the IS-3 took out my ally, the IS there. I wasn't looking at the kill information on the top, and it was actually, I think, the Tiger that took him out. So I thought I had all the time in the world to take aim on that and that IS-3, and I got smashed for my troubles. So yeah, and I thought I was going to be really clever here and put in a blind shot, and I got smashed again. So pretty kind of stupid play for me there, lazy kind of play, and wasn't really paying attention at all to the map. And we're in a bit of trouble now, right? So we're tanked down. But actually now, those mistakes kind of got me thinking a bit, and actually I started to play properly here now. I'm actually just sort of doing a bit of more thinking game. So I knew I was going to bounce that shot from the T44, small caliber gun, and now I want to help out my mate here by coming in on the IS-3. This tank, by the way, has 8 degrees of gun depression, which is pretty good for German heavy, so I'm able to get down here, take him out. And now I've actually got myself in a really good position here, because now in this small gully here, the vulnerable part of my tank, which is the lower plate on the front, is now hidden. So I'm in a kind of hold down position here, and I'm going to be able to bounce shots all day long now from this position. So started off, did okay, was aggressive, pushed on, made a few silly mistakes then that were easily avoidable, but yeah, just a lack of concentration on my part. But now I'm in a really good position. I'm going to really start hurting the enemy now. So again, another bounce, and by the way, we know that the gun on the T34 is a really amazing gun, so getting a bounce off him shows you just how good the armor is here. And in this gully here, if they're coming front onto me, they're just going to bounce shots all day long. Now we've rectified that situation. There's only one of them left. I pick up APCR because I want to make sure to kill, and I know that I can take one hit off the T44, which I do. Spot him up. And he's really actually obliging. He just sits there and let me kill him. So great, thank you very much, mate. So there you go. Pretty good game, but again, with some mistakes in it. But all over a good game, first class, almost 3.2k damage, a lot of block damage as well, bit of a carry as well for the team. And just showing how effective this tank can be, and being aggressive, because that's really, I believe, what you need to do with this tank. Not being stupid, but being aggressive, you know, making sure that you are side scraping, etc., but push into the enemy. By the way, just on the price of this tank, I do realize the irony of the fact that I'm talking about spending money, and I spent the money to review the tank, but then, you know, I can't review the tank without buying it, right? But yeah, I didn't really feel very good having to spend that much money, I have to say. Anyway, and of course I'm not associated with WarGaming, so of course I know I'm never going to get any freebies from them, you know. Probably not even their #1 fan, and they're not my #1 fan, I guess, because I'm always pretty honest about them, which they may not like if they even watch my videos, so I have no idea if they do. Anyway, as I said, to recap, this tank is all about its armor. It's all about being a heavy, pushing into those key positions on the map, playing for your team. It's very much a team tank. It's very forgiving. You get bounces you don't even play for, as you saw I did there with that Tiger in that game. Steel wall medals are on their way to you. But do watch that lower plate in the front. It is vulnerable, and you can get penned, especially by a player who knows what he's doing. So keep it covered when you can. If you can get into a gully, as I did there, go hold down, you'll get a lot of joy. Pay attention to the map. And pay attention to red fast movers. If you get isolated, you're going to die. The traverse and the track speed in this tank, you cannot really get into safety if you get isolated. It's not fast enough. Use supercharge and refined gun to get that muzzle velocity up. It's very important and a key tenet of my gameplay. And be aggressive. Push and play for your team. This is very much a team tank. It's a frontline tank as well. If you're top tier, lead. If you are up tiered, then at least go and support your other tanks, and you can do a lot of damage. And this tank is best when it's facing the enemy, taking their shots and being the pivot for your team. If you like playing for your team and you like going front on in the heavy, then this tank is good for you. But this tank plays in a pocket of the map. You cannot influence the whole map. You're going to play in a small part of the map because it's simply not mobile enough to get around the map, and therefore you can't really influence the game if you lose teammates, so therefore you need to play as a team member. But it can be great, but you just need to be aware of its limits of what it can do, particularly that small part of the map that you can play in. It's hugely expensive, absolutely. If you want it for the gameplay only, not as for a collector tank, then get the VK10001P. It's exactly the same. tank in terms of gameplay, and it won't cost you a fortune. The music in the first game is Dmitry Shostakovich, Waltz number 2, and in the second game it was Karl Orff, O Fortuna from Carmina Burana, and that particular version is from the movie Excalibur, the John Borman classic movie. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, worth watching. Cheers much, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it useful, and I guess all remains for me to say is pants off.